Okay, we're back. We're live for the 3 o'clock show on, what's today? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah. And the person on my left is Carol Kozlovich. She is actually, so to get this out of the way, she's the mother of Beth Ann Kozlovich on Hawaii Public Radio. Okay, she's also a businesswoman in Honolulu, and she's the president of NAMI. And NAMI, if you didn't know, you have to know now. Write this down. It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Right.
Okay, and this happens to be Shrink Wrap, which is about shrinks and wrapping shrinks. And we're calling this show Dealing with Mental Illness at NAMI. Welcome to the show, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here with you and to have an opportunity to talk about NAMI to whomever is listening.
Well, I'm sure they
And I
listen.
think it's a pretty good listenership you have here, yes.
Well, we have a show on Thursday. I was telling you before, we have a show on Thursday called Aloha United We Stand. It's about these various social safety net organizations in the community supported by Aloha United Way. And we meet all their executive directors, we meet their officers, we meet some of their beneficiaries, and we learn about what's happening in Hawaii. And that's the way I think we can all learn a lot about what's happening in Hawaii.
Indeed, I quite agree with you.
So let's talk about you first. You come to this issue as a businesswoman.
I do. When they asked me, 6 years ago now, to sit on the board, I was quite surprised because I really didn't know anything about mental illness other than what I would read in the newspaper or whatever, and I was curious why they even wanted me there. But I felt that it was a compliment and an honor to be asked to sit on a board, so I said yes. And that was 6 years ago. And for the first 2 years, Jay, I just sat very quietly.
That's the right thing to do. Yeah.
And learned.
You have to learn.
And listened and got more and more agitated because I realized there's so much that we need to do that we're not doing.
So let's take the hesitation on that. What does NAMI do? NAMI is part of a national alliance.
Yes.
What does it do nationally? What does it do here in Hawaii?
All right. NAMI is the largest grassroots mental illness organization in America. It's in every state in the Union, every state, including, of course, Hawaii. And during my tenure, we established affiliates on all the neighbor islands. So part of NAMI Hawaii is not only Oahu, but Kauai and Maui and the Big Island. And for anybody listening over there, if there is a mental illness in the family and they need help, they can call the local affiliate as well as the office right on Oahu.
Okay, so what is a mental illness? How do we know we have a mental illness on our hands?
Well, truthfully, the person who has the mental illness, for example, doesn't always know it, and very often does not. There's a very long word. It's anosognosia. A-N-O-S-O-G-N-O-S-I-A. Anosognosia, which simply means a lack of knowledge that some condition exists. And many, many people who have a mental illness don't know it. And Dr. Javier Amador wrote a wonderful book. What was the exact name of that? I am not sick, I don't need help. That's it. I am not sick, I don't need help.
Most people would say it because there's a certain emotional charge. There's it's a bad reputation to be called someone who has a mental illness. You are you got a problem if people think you have a mental illness.
That's right.
It's always been the case.
It's something like when I was a little girl, nobody said the word cancer. It was the big C. And I remember as a child, I was wondering, what in the world is the big C? And I got a little older and I said, what is that? And they said, it's cancer. Well, why don't you say that? Well, at one time people believed that cancer was contagious and it was a stigma on the family and you wanted to keep it quiet, right? Pretty much that's how it is with mental illness today.
Big M.
Well, right, and I hope that doesn't catch on. But that's very true, because there are many, many people out there, Jay, who have mental illness, who are functioning beautifully in our world, and no one knows that they have a mental illness. Why? Because they take their medications, and they're active in the world, or they're in medicine, and they're in the law, and they're in our universities. They're everywhere.
So what is it? Is alcoholism or drug addiction, is that a mental illness?
No. They can exacerbate a mental illness, but they are not in of themselves a mental illness.
Give me an example.
Schizophrenia, bipolar, many forms of depression, and on and on. In fact, NAMI has all sorts of brochures.
What have you got spread on the table?
Oh, I have brochures on all the different disorders that are classified as mental problems. And they're all available from the NAMI office here on Oahu. And there's a phone number. We could even give the phone number if anybody cares to jot it down. It's 808, of course, 591-1297. 591-1297.
And there's a website.
And there's a website. And the number you're giving there on the website is the national line. I just gave you the local one. And you can call either one. And you can also go to your computer and put in NAMIHawaii.org. NAMIHawaii.org, and you'll learn about the local NAMI. Or NAMI.org, and you can see the national picture. Okay.
Now, okay, so there is mental illness in the country. A lot of people don't know they have a mental illness. Some do, I guess, the family has observed, or they have observed, then they go to a doctor and all this.
Right.
Now, I guess NAMI...
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
They don't always go to a doctor.
Yes, and now, or sometimes, yeah. So the question is, what does NAMI do, the NAMI organization do to help them?
Okay. NAMI has something known as a family-to-family program. Every state in the union has this family, every NAMI organization in America has this family-to-family program. Only people who have someone in their family who has a mental illness can go and attend these classes. It's a 12-week course. It's totally free. No expense to the individual going. And if you want to go to the ones that we have here on Oahu and all the other islands too, just call the office.
What do you teach in the course?
First of all, they're taught only by people who themselves have somebody who is mentally ill in their family. So they have, a first clear understanding of what it's like.
It's about how to cope, how to deal with someone in your family who has a mental illness.
Precisely.
Now, do you also
and you don't feel alone anymore,
Yes, well,
because you have other people with whom you can speak openly, and like that Las Vegas things, whatever is said there stays there,
sure.
and that's true.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you also refer people to doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists?
Not as a rule, but we're mostly there to be of help to people who, as I said, have family members with a mental illness, but we also have support groups where people can come who themselves have a mental illness and they want to be with others. And we started something wonderful, what was it, about 6 years ago, called WOW, W-O-W, Women on Wellness. And it's a women's group, obviously. Only women can attend. They don't allow any men to come in. And each one of those ladies has a mental illness of some sort. And they support each other. It's a beautiful organization.
Alcoholics Anonymous, right?
Kind of like that.
AA meeting.
Yeah, kind of like that.
So they support each other. And is there a facilitator there? Is there a doctor or a psychologist there?
No, one of their own group is usually the facilitator. And from time to time, they bring in guest speakers. And it's a very loving, cohesive group. I've been invited to attend some of their meetings, and I do. And it's wonderful to see how they support each other. So that's another one of the groups.
Let's take a look at the movie now. We're going to see a movie. It's a movie that's 17 minutes long.
Oh.
That's a little long for us. So we're only going to play the first maybe 3 minutes of it, but I'd like you to tell our viewers what the movie is about so they can know what to watch.
All right, every year there's a national convention, and at the last convention there was a speaker, and this speaker actually was quite extraordinary and extremely well received. So I think you have a clip of his speech, and then you're going to show a few minutes.
Yeah.
And if you give people the website, they might want to watch the entire one, because it could be very helpful for people who themselves have a mental illness and know it,
Okay.
and for families.
What's the website?
Oh,
We have it written down. We'll show it to you on the screen.
okay, the website to get the
For
film,
the
you
movie,
mean?
right, if you
All
want
right,
to see this
that
movie.
I don't know by heart, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're going to see the movie first. We're going to show maybe the first 3 minutes of it, but it's longer.
Okay.
And this is something describing mental.
Do you believe that you can rise from the ruins? Believe you can. Believe you can. Believe. I always like to start off with a little spoken word poetry to infuse the place. So first I want you to raise your hand if you think you know somebody who's diagnosed with high blood pressure, heart disease, asthma, or any sort of physical illness. Raise your hands high. Okay, you can put your hands down. Okay. Now I want you to raise your hands if you think you know somebody who is diagnosed with a mental illness. Raise your hands. Okay, you can put your hands down. So I speak across the country. And when I ask this question, I get different responses. What do you think the responses are? Why do you think they're different? What do you think the responses are? Right? For the first one, people shoot their hands straight up. Yeah, of course I know somebody who has heart disease with physical illness, right? When I ask the second question, people's hands raise up very hesitantly. And it's like, why didn't you raise your hand straight up? One is a physical illness, the other is a mental illness. I believe that they did not raise their hand straight up because stigma. That hesitation is stigma in action. And because of stigma, we well know right here in this room, people are losing their lives, people are losing jobs, people are losing housing. This must change. This morning, I want to say, first, to start off, is that I am truly grateful. I stand on the shoulders of people that have loved me, cared for me, and supported me even when I did not realize it that I needed it. People like my parents, my friends who took me to the emergency room at college even when I did not know I needed to go. And my NAMI affiliate, NAMI Queens Nassau and NAMI New York State. I believe that the In Our Own Voice program provides people the platform, their deepest pain to be their platform for their highest purposes. I'm so grateful for that. That's why I stand here today. Thank you. I also want you to ask you one more question. Raise your hand if you believe that it is time to talk, that it's time to embrace the future. Raise your hand. My promise to you today is that we are going to leave here transformed. We're going to leave here knowing that, one, it is okay to talk about what you're going through. Two, there is absolutely no shame in seeking help. And three, if you are diagnosed with a mental illness, there is hope. This morning, we are going to be united under the banner of acceptance. And under that banner, those three things are more than possible. Nothing is impossible when we accept. So, we are a social media generation, and I have a charge for us. And clearly, I'm a technological generation, but if we can motivate to the next slide, please. Let's move to the next slide. We are a social media generation. And what I want us to do here, we tweet and Facebook things, we tweet, hey, he has a selfie and he looks great. But what I want us to do is share something that's going to empower others and move others beyond what we believe. What I would like you to do, first pull out your phones. What I would like you to do is, if throughout this conference you see something, hear something, or feel something that makes you feel accepted, I want you to pull out your phone and say hashtag I'm acceptance, hashtag NAMICon15. And if you feel like it, you can tag me as well. Because beyond here, beyond these walls, we want the movement of acceptance to be far-reaching. I know about shame. In 2000, I was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder. As a sophomore at Harvard University, one night, I heard Jesus talking on one corner. His arms are outstretched. He was looking to the sky, looking down to the ground. He had a white beard and a long robe. I heard cars talking that same night. My parents came and picked me up the spring of 2000 from Harvard University, and I was hospitalized that same night. I know about shame. It took me 13 years before I could openly talk about my diagnosis. I do not want that for any of us in here. The stigma around mental illness must change, and it must change now.
Okay, wow. Powerful
yes,
speaker.
Powerful.
So tell us about what you got out of that movie, what we should get out of that movie, Carol.
All right. What we at NAMI want fervently to do is to have all of you realize that if a person has a mental illness, it just means there's something wrong up here, as opposed to, we'll say, the neck down, where there's a physical illness. And look at it in the same way, because it's treatable. You know, let me explain something to you about the law, the way it is now here in Hawaii, and in most of the country as well. If a family member needs help, let's say they have a child who's acting out or getting violent, they call 911. And who comes out? A policeman in a police car. And he asks what's going on, and by then the person who has been acting out is very calm, and they see what's going on, and the policeman will ask that person, "Are you all right?" And he or she will say, "I'm fine." And the policeman sees nothing going on that's wrong or troublesome, so he leaves. What has been accomplished? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Now, in some states, I think Massachusetts is one, they send out not a police car, but an ambulance with trained professionals to evaluate the situation. And we need to get to that point in every state of the union. We must. Now, while the police are out there, I will say that...
Can a person who has a mental illness be violent?
Yes.
Are the guys in the white suits going to be able to handle the violence that a guy in a blue suit can handle?
Yes, they can, because they're trained to do that.
So
yes,
they can cover the whole spectrum of possibilities.
Now, I will tell you this, Jay, while the police are out at the home, they may call the psychologist on duty, who makes his diagnosis, or hers, if there's a woman there, over the phone. To me, that's ludicrous. How can you diagnose something over the phone? But that will happen, so I just want to go on record for saying that that is a possibility.
Police are carrying video cameras now.
Well, this is new, but this is very,
new.
very
it's
new.
Coming. It's
Yes,
coming.
yes.
Some states harder than others, but if a policeman has a video camera,
Yeah.
and therefore the psychologist back in the station house or
Yeah.
wherever he is can see the interaction as well as hear the interaction between the policeman or the
Right.
paramedic, whatever it is, on the scene, that he could make a diagnosis.
That could be
couldn't he?
helpful.
This may be coming, don't you think?
I hope it's coming faster than this whole interview will go. But yes, it could be helpful, very helpful. Now, if for sake of this discussion, the person is taken to a hospital, let's say the police do take him to a hospital, he's only kept there 72 hours. That's all.
That's the law
And then he's released,
in Hawaii.
yes, with no further help. So the bottom line is nothing is really accomplished. And you understand that mentally ill people are not stupid. they have a mental aberration, they have a mental problem, but they see, oh, the police are coming, and they're very calm in many cases, and I'm just fine, and whatever transpired before, you would have no idea that it happened, because everything is very calm, because they say, no, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. They may know something is wrong, or they may not. Remember, I already talked about that. Many people don't know.
At the end of the day, Carol,
Yes.
isn't the most important thing, not the most important, but one important consideration, is we have to protect the community, don't we?
Yes.
From what might be a violent interlude.
Yes.
And we don't know because, as you say, it's the array of possible mental illnesses go from one side to the other, include lots of other possibilities. The schizophrenic could be violent.
Could be.
And we have to be able to deal with that. Of course, for the benefit of the schizophrenic, but also for the benefit of the people on the street, the neighbors, the friends, whatever it may be.
I don't deny that. So my point is, have a trained professional make the assessment, and they will know what to do.
Okay, the question now, in Hawaii, right now, today,
Yeah, right.
do we have a trained professional making the assessment?
Not when there's a call to the home, no.
The police come out.
The police come out,
So
just
you're
what I told
calling for
you.
a whole new infrastructure
Yes,
of people who would respond to something that sounds like it might be a mental
that is
illness.
correct. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
So is that likely of success? I mean, where are we on the continuum of building that infrastructure?
I'm going to tell you something, Jay. It's not just a problem here in Hawaii.
I'm sure.
It's a problem all over the country.
sure.
But some states are more progressive in this regard than others, Massachusetts being one that I mentioned. So,
Hawaii's a liberal state. Hawaii adopts things. It's an early adopter of things.
I know, but people,
How far are we down the road in adopting this?
I hope not very far, because there are enough things happening in this world to make people realize that something has to
You
be
mean
done.
we're closer to it?
I think we're closer to it.
Yeah.
See, one of the big problems is that people in crisis, they themselves don't realize that they're in crisis.
Yes.
The family does,
Yes.
but they don't realize
Yes.
it. So then you get into laws protecting the rights of the individual and all that sort of thing. Well, yes, that's very important too. But if those rights conflict with the person's ability to be helped, then we have something where we have two systems at loggerheads.
Yes. Or you could also say that our current system is way behind. And we haven't
I would
caught
say
up
that.
with modern psychology or psychiatry or, for that matter, technology
Right.
in order to deal with a person who's acting out on the street. But I
That's
think
true.
it goes to, it's really important, I think, to include in this conversation the notion that we have to make peace here. We don't want violence.
No.
We don't want an altercation in public. We don't want people to feel threatened, and we certainly don't want anybody hurt. We don't want the person with the mental illness to be hurt. That is, I remember a case in law school, it was, about a fellow who had some kind of problem. I think he had a stroke. Let's just say he had a stroke, and he fell down in a streetcar. And the conductor in the streetcar figured he was drunk and rolled him off the streetcar onto the street, and he was injured. And there was this lawsuit, and of course the plaintiff won that lawsuit, because we have to be sensitive. Sometimes it looks like one thing, but
And
it's
it's
another
something
thing.
totally different.
And we have to
That's
discern the difference.
That's right.
Or we will be responsible for failing to do that.
That's very true. No, you're absolutely right. And along that line, it's important to talk about how to recognize mental illness, or even when it manifests itself.
I'm talking about everybody,
yes,
not just the paramedic, but everybody.
everybody. Now, it seems that mental illness manifests itself in the teen years and in the early 20s.
Really?
Yes.
So there's an age factor on
Yes, there are signs.
this. Yeah.
And one of the things about which I'm extremely proud is the fact that just this past year, we have a chapter of NAMI on the UH campus and on KCC. And I want you to know that these young people come there, and they have a president and a vice president, they have events, and they now have a place to go.
And they're willing to admit.
Expose them, yes,
Expose
they
themselves.
are. They are. Now that's very telling, don't you think?
It is. It's
Yeah.
it's an awakening.
That's right. And I've invited them to come to our board meetings, and the president of the different ones will come, and we hear about the events that are taking place. So yes, they embrace wholeheartedly having some place to go.
Give me a scenario. I mean, for example,
try.
I'm really interested in the fact that kids in that age range are self-aware enough to figure out that they may have a problem. What why is that? Anatomically, chemically, why is that, first? And secondly, what kind of problem might it be when they come to your chapter person and say, I think I have a problem?
Those are good questions, Jay, and I'm not a medical person, and I don't think I'm quite qualified to answer that, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think as many of us know when something's not just right, when we feel disassociated from our peers, when we feel perhaps lonely or very depressed. And that's a good question. And I'd like to ask some of these young
It's
people the very
consistent with
same question.
my theory, which I told you before we started. And it's in a nuclear or post-nuclear world where we're all in little silos and we have all these stresses on us, all these demands made on us, precious little comfort, precious little solace that we have to perform, or there will be disastrous consequences. And this is so especially in school, isn't it? Especially in college, where you don't have the support of your family anymore. You're alone. You're away from your family. You're young. You're in a situation you haven't had before, and now you're feeling that stress. And it's that stress, as any stress, which puts you to the test and may reveal the problem or exacerbate a problem simply because of the stress of your life.
And everything you said is true. Everything you said is true. And somehow, thank goodness, those young people who have become aware that there is a chapter on their very same campus, and we hope to get on every single campus here. And we've begun it. And again, I'm so proud of this board because, at one time when I first came on board, I think I told you we were a governing board, and I converted us to a working board. And these people are so beautiful, the things they do. And one of our board members started all these. Her name is Krisha, and she's a professor at UH. And she started the chapter on UH, and it's been mushrooming from that point. This is so important. And I also want you to know this, Jay, that in our prison system, hear this, 1/3 of the population is mentally ill. And most of them don't even know why they're there. Does that sound right?
They're not conscious of why they're there.
No. And why are they there? Maybe they did something like, maybe they urinated on the sidewalk, or maybe they did something so minimal.
That's really
and they
scary, Carol.
Isn't it scary? Thank you. And they end up in prison with a prison record for a minor infraction like that.
Well, you wonder if they had the mental illness before, when they committed the crime that landed them in jail, or whether time in jail, which is very stressful, for a claustrophobic.
Interesting point. Could have brought it on.
Exacerbated this mental illness. You don't know where it came from.
It's a possibility,
Yeah,
but most of these people already had some sort of mental illness, and they had no family, many of them, and they get picked up. And they end up in jail, and I won't go through the whole process, but they just do. And as I said, 1/3 of the population of OCCC and Halava are mentally ill.
Okay, so now you have the people mentally ill in Halava, OCCC, and in universities, and there must be a common denominator. Without asking exactly what that is, or how they wound up with a mental illness, or how bad it is, what can NAMI do? What does NAMI do for them through the chapter? I assume you have a chapter at OCC?
No.
Do you want to?
Interesting point. I might
If
just bring
1/3
that
of them
up.
have a mental illness, don't you think it would be
If they would
a good
come,
location?
if they even
Okay.
are aware of the fact
Well,
that
you
they
have
have
the stigma problem, don't you?
You have the stigma, and you also have there's nothing wrong with me, and I don't know what I'm doing here.
It's all a big mistake.
Exactly. So that's a possibility. So what do we need to do? We need to go to the legislature. We need to,
Well, before we get there,
oh, okay.
what would you like to do with the people in jail,
Yeah.
the people at the university, which does have a chapter? What's the process to help them? What do you do to help them?
Well, the people who are at the university are really helping themselves by being together and working together and having each other to talk with and be supportive.
Support group.
Yes, exactly. The people in the jails, I haven't thought about that one yet. How to help them, frankly, is to get them out of there. They don't belong there. They're abused there. They're taunted there. They're physically and mentally abused even more there.
Yeah.
Get them out of there.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Where would you put them?
That's what we need to do. We need to have a system, like some other states do, where we have housing for people who are mentally ill. And it needs to be a place where they can live, and there can be social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, case managers, all there that work in tandem and know that particular person, each giving his own area of expertise, and that person has a chance to become well and to live a normal life. But we have to segregate them away from the criminal.
The criminals, but you
of
also have to
society.
protect the community from them.
And you would,
Because
wouldn't you, if they were in their own housing
Yes.
and
But
they had a
there
place
have
to
be
go?
restraints on that. They can't be in your neighborhood next door.
Why not?
Well, people might object to that.
They do from time to time, don't they?
Okay, we're going to take, from time to time, what we do is take breaks. We're going to take one now. This is Carol Kozlovich. She's a businesswoman and the president of NAMI Hawaii, which is a Hawaii nonprofit, part of a national organization that stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we're talking today here on Shrink Wrap about dealing with mental illness at NAMI. We'll be right back.
Aloha, it's Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island and ER physician. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the Think Tech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Aloha! How you doing? It's me, Angus McTech, wishing you to welcome and join us to see us on Hibachi Talk on Think Tech Hawaii. Join my co-hosts, Gordo the Tech Czar and Andrew the Security Guy, every Friday from 1300 to 1345. We look forward to seeing you. We'll talk tech and we'll have some wee bit of fun. And remember, let your wing gang free wherever you be. Aloha!
Hospital.
One. We're back, we're live, and we had a little
okay.
mental relief during the break, a little comedy here on Think Tech.
Always good.
We're back with Carol Kozlovich, and we're talking about, NAMI, we're talking about mental illness in our community and what we can do about it, and we're really not built for this. We have not designed systems in a larger sense.
We have not.
And
But we
so
must.
there's camera 2 over there, Carol, and that's the legislature of the state of Hawaii you're talking to. I'd like you to tell them what you'd like them to do to deal with this problem.
Oh,
right there.
yes. I and all of us in NAMI and all the people who will benefit from this would like you to create homes, to establish homes where people who are mentally ill can live and be protected. And in those homes for the seriously mentally ill, they need to have social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, case managers, all there who will work as a team and look after that person and help them to get onto their medications and stay on their meds. And people do get well who have mental illness,
Sure.
just like people who have physical illness get well.
Yes.
It's doable.
Yes, especially now with these high-tech drugs over the past couple of decades. It's all changed. We have drugs that do miracles, and
We
so
do.
it's possible to be effectively cured. In fact, mental illness is one of the relatively easy things to cure, actually.
easier said than done,
I know
so,
that. I
but
know that.
but it is doable. No, Jay, you're absolutely right. It is doable. And I would ask people, just when you're out on the street and you see homeless people, don't think of them as, remember a word we used to use when we were kids, bums or things like that, or say people are crazy. I don't use those words anymore because they're not bums, they're homeless. And many of them are mentally ill, and their families have put them out, or they themselves have put themselves out, and they're just living on the street, but they need help.
Well, here, teach me how to be sensitive on this, Carol. I'm
Okay.
sure this has come up in NAMI. So, this person is mentally ill.
Okay.
Trying to work it out, trying to do drugs, therapy, what have you, social work. Okay,
Oh.
and I find out. I know this person is working on that. How do I conduct myself with this person? Do I talk about it? Do I ask, personal questions about it? How do I express? I want to be sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
How do I be sensitive?
I don't think I'd go into detail and say, what's wrong with you, or what are you dealing with? I would just let that person know that I want to be his friend and that I'm here for you. If you want to talk about something, we can talk about it. If I can help you in some way, just let me know.
Yeah.
I think
Well, you know,
that's
but what
better.
you've just said
What?
is the statement of tolerance and friendship.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
the statement of kindness.
Absolutely.
It's applicable for whatever kind of misfortune should befall that person. And I think there's a great lesson in your answer there.
Thank you.
Yeah. But we should be that way with people.
In general.
In general.
Absolutely.
How are you? I really mean it. I want to know how you are. I
Yes.
want you to tell me what troubles you, and I will listen, and I will
Yes.
give you honest feedback, and maybe I can help you. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
It's
It
something
reminds
we
me
have
of
to do.
something written on the wall of the great church in Montreal, this beautiful St. Joseph's Church. It says, "N'aie pas peur, je suis là, tu as du prix à mes yeux et je t'aime." And it's God's statement, to the parishioner. And what it means, that French means, don't worry. I will always, don't worry, don't have fear. I am here. I will always, you will always have value in my eyes, and I will always love you. And now you can say that as a religious statement, but in
Yeah.
fact, it's a statement that anyone could make to anyone else.
Perfect, perfect. And one thing, quite honestly, not to say to somebody who is suffering, oh, I know how you feel, because you do not know how they feel. And then, we have cases where many people who are mentally ill attempt suicide, and there's a national organization to help in that area. And that's one thing, you never say, I know how you feel. Each one of us, I'm sure, has lost someone that we love. And when someone comes over to us and says, oh, I know how you feel, my dear, you don't feel good from that, because they don't
No,
know
you
how
don't believe it. It's
No.
got to be an honest statement.
No, and how could they possibly know how you feel?
Yeah.
But if they say, I am so sorry for your loss,
Yeah.
that's good enough. That's a lot.
Well, that's good advice, I think, to give people who may not be very graceful in dealing, who have to be how to deal with someone who they know they have found out has a mental illness, and I think it's good advice. Now, what about a citizen who has a home, perhaps right next to the home that you would like to build with people who have a history of mental illness? What do you talk to that person and tell him about the tolerance you expect from him?
When this comes about, and we don't have it yet, and it may not be next to your home, it may be out in a beautiful wooded or countrified area that we have, and we're blessed, we have beautiful topography here. But wherever it is, just realize these are people there who are ill. When you go by the cancer clinics, do you feel threatened? I don't think so. If you meet people who have diabetes or lung disease, are you threatened? I don't think so. Don't feel threatened from these people. You're going to have to train yourself. There are people who have all sorts of diseases who kill people, not just people who are mentally ill. And, oh, by the way, statistically, murders in our world, the smallest number of murders are committed by mentally ill people, not the greatest number. So get that right.
Yeah.
The smallest number are by mentally ill people.
Yeah.
All right, that's an important statistic, I think.
I'd like to add something to that
Sure.
I believe to be true, and see how you feel about it.
Okay, please.
It's my mammalian theory of humanity.
Okay.
And that is, we should never forget we're all mammals.
Mm-hmm.
And we have chemical processes that have been developed over millions of years as a species. And to the extent we are rational at some points in the course of a day, that's nice, that's terrific. We should be happy for that. I mean, although rationality is relative and sometimes controversial. And to the extent that we're not completely rational, that's explainable because we're mammals. Mammals are not necessarily always rational. Now, take it one step further and say, well, mental illness is still subject to a lot of definitional discussion.
True.
About exactly what is it and how far do these various diagnoses go or not. And so I offer you this thought. To some extent, Carol,
Okay.
we all have a little craziness in us. To some extent, we all have a little.
I think we do. And I
Yeah.
think we would all be willing to say that at some time each and every one of us feels depressed. I mean, if you're listening to this or watching this and you can say, I have never felt depressed in my life, bravo.
Whoa, that's
You're
great.
either lying to yourself or maybe you are so blessed that you have never had anything happen to you that has caused you to feel depressed. So my point and yours is there are degrees,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And we all, to some degree, I think, have had a mental disturbance. We'll use that
And we
of
all
some
have
kind.
a need for comfort.
We do.
There's no exceptions to
We
that.
do.
And some have a greater need, a lesser need, but we all have some need as
Right.
mammals and members of the
Right.
species. So where is it all going to go? Now you've achieved some remarkable expansions, better practices. You've created chapters.
Right.
You've been a great president of NAMI
I hope
Hawaii.
so. It was important to me to do that.
And it's forever to your credit that you have.
Thank you.
But what happens now? I titled this last question, Après moi. We're doing a lot of French today. Après moi, le déluge. What will happen to NAMI Hawaii after your term is over?
Oh, I can answer you very, very clearly. It's going to get bigger and stronger and be more involved. And I'm going to become an advisor, and I'll go to meetings, so I'll be there and be able to put my 2 cents in. But we'll have a new president. It'll be actually Mike Durant. I'm quite sure he will be the president again. And we have joked about I'll stay on as an advisor and maybe come back and assume the presidency the following year. Maybe yes, maybe no. But that's not the point. The point is we're growing. And now when we mention the name NAMI, as opposed to 6 years ago when I first came on the board, people say, oh, NAMI, I know about you. And that's wonderful. We're going to continue to do that and be vocal and go to the ledge and help to advocate. We're actually learning how to better advocate. The group wanted to learn, and they are learning, and talk to people in the health field and see. We don't want, Jay, just to be critical. We want to be helpful. So if anyone in our society here in Hawaii says, come NAMI people, help us to achieve this, we will gladly do it.
Yeah.
Gladly.
Well, I think it's wonderful that a businesswoman such as yourself goes out with such a level of commitment and
Thank you.
passion and helps not only NAMI, but all the beneficiaries of NAMI and thus the community. So good for you, Carol. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you for your kind words and for giving me this opportunity to come onto your show and talk with all of you.
Thanks for